Welcome to Talk About Games. I'm your host, resident newbie and games editor Rishi Alwani. And with me today we have Reuben Pereira, who used to be India's #1 FIFA player. And yes, today's episode is all about FIFA, which is allegedly the beautiful game and, well, India's most popular video game for a lot of reasons. And so, Reuben, you've had a long and interesting history with FIFA. How do you get started?
So personally, I'm an avid football player myself. I played for school, played for college, and I had a couple of injuries, had to sit out and take up something else to do rather. So I couldn't leave football aside. My brother got me a copy of the game, and that's how I got into FIFA. So from there, each year it just built up, and I kept playing. And I think the skills that I couldn't quite perform in the physical world was something that I could do in the digital world.
You went by a handle called Bone Breakers or B Break. What's that all about?
Yeah, so my gaming handle was Bonebreaker17. The reason behind that was because, like I mentioned about the injuries, during school and college, I broke a couple of bones. Yes, a couple of bones. And I said, getting into the digital world, let's go along with that. So that's how we came up with BBreak17.
Yeah, so as you can see, like Reuben aside, there's been a lot of other people who've been playing FIFA over the years in India. We've seen a lot of grassroots action around the game. And it's been super popular for a lot of reasons. So the reason, but one obvious reason is because it's really easy to get into. It's a game that almost anyone can pick up and play and understand because, well, it's based on football or soccer if you live in that part of the world. And that's something which, a lot of people find easy to understand and get the grasp of. But popularity aside, Reuben, what drew you to play it competitively?
So I think the local cafe next to my building was running a FIFA tournament. And back then, if I recall correctly, the first player got a Logitech keyboard. And back then, I said, if you're winning something, why not just go and give it a go? And I did end up winning the first tournament I ever participated in. And from there on, I just kept building up and moving to the higher tournaments. I seen that the price kept increasing, and that's how I got into professional gaming.
Yeah, incidentally, a lot of the action around FIFA and a lot of the events around FIFA in India have been done by third parties. They're not being done by EA themselves. Now, EA has had a couple of FIFA-related events which were officially done for India, and those were like almost 10 years ago. Those were the FIFA Interactive World Cup, which had 2 editions back in 2008 and 2009. More or less, whatever you're seeing on the ground on FIFA and what's been happening around FIFA has been done by by other players, be it Nodwin, be it Gaming Monk, be it others. And that's also part of the reason why we don't see FIFA reaching its full potential in a lot of ways, because EA themselves aren't promoting it as well as they could. So, so Reuben, what's your take on that? Do you think that a publisher is required to actually be there on the ground and see how this pans out?
Absolutely. I think the fact that we don't have EA's marketing team looking too much into the India market, we don't see the local tournaments happening anymore. So like you mentioned, a few organizers who are currently hosting tournaments, they are just the ones who have a small community. But I think FIFA is maybe one of the top games in India. And there's a lot more potential, but sadly, people are not able to get their hands on copies, and because of that, they just skip out the game because there's no support really from the publisher.
Yeah, I mean, and that actually brings up a very good point. In terms of popularity, and this is something Gadgets 360 has been able to verify from the multiple number of retailers, distributors, publishers and distributors who have spoken to us off record on background, is that by and far, aside from GTA 5, the most popular game in India is FIFA. Year on year, retailers go out of the way to ensure stock of FIFA is available at stores, and it's something people come and pick up. They don't mind paying more to pick up and play FIFA. And so much so that back in the day, around 2013, 2014, just before the PS4 became a big deal, EA's revenues in India were in excess of $2.2 million. And they were by far the biggest publisher on store shelves for a lot of retailers, even online. But what we've seen is, despite the popularity and despite the fact that everyone wants FIFA and is willing to pay more for a copy of FIFA. I mean, to put it in a perspective, the game at launch used to sell at 2499, 2799 back during the PS3 era, and now it's gone all the way up to 4299. People are willing to pay that price. People are willing to pay even more. In fact, so much so that we've seen people buy a copy for close to 5,000 rupees. So it's not like the game isn't popular. It has an audience. People care. People are playing it. And if all accounts are to be believed, usually a game in India, the day one number is usually not more than 15, 20,000 units on PS4 PC. But with FIFA, if we count unofficial, the numbers go in excess of 50, 60,000. And this is on a base of 250,000 PS4s. Now, I'm sure but however, people like Reuben essentially end up playing a lot of FIFA on PC. And what we've seen over the years, since 2013, 2014, is that there is no disc copy of FIFA on PC anymore. Am I right?
Yeah, so I think from the year FIFA 15, that's 2015, is when it moved on to the Origin platform only. And if you step into my home today, you'll be able to see the FIFA series that I had all the way from 2002 till 2014 racked up. But, you know, I had to stop at 2015, and now everything's gone digital. So yeah, I don't have something to show for it anymore.
Yeah, and the reason why we bring this up, because year on year, every time Gadget 360 covers FIFA, we always get that one guy in the comments who reminds me of myself, who keeps asking, where's my disc copy of FIFA on PC? And to you guys, yeah, that's the situation. EA has stopped making the game on disc, and if you want it, you'll have to pony up for a digital copy, which costs around 3,499 to 4,500, depending on which version of the game. Now, one other thing which is of interest is that FIFA itself has lent itself to a lot of interesting cultural nuances in a way. While we've seen Indians do anything to get their hands on WhatsApp, and that's something we've seen with the JioPhone, where, you know, even though WhatsApp isn't officially supported, people have gone out of their way to find loopholes, hacks, and ways to get it working. We've seen something similar arise over the last few years with FIFA, particularly on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. Due to something called account sharing. So what happens is, if you have a copy of, if you don't mind buying FIFA digitally, you can share the game with your friends. So what would happen is, if Reuben, let's say, bought the game on PS4 or digitally for, let's say, right now it's going for 3,375, he can share his account credentials with me, I can play it on my console, and we can split the cost. And a lot of people tend to do that. So what actually happens is, I mean, I'm sure someone at EA is probably counting where they're seeing a lot more people from India playing the game, but it's not actually correlating in terms of sales. And do you think issues like account sharing also hinder the fact that it could actually be a tangible esport?
I'm not too sure about that. I think FIFA itself is a football game, and, you know, football is something that everyone's passionate about. I think not the number one game, not the number one sport rather in India, because everyone believes in cricket. But football is, I think, if not the second best sport in India. And everybody who plays football is definitely someone who likes FIFA.
But then, having said that, now, I mean, you've been playing FIFA competitively over the years. You've seen the game evolve from what it was in its early days to what the beast it is right now. And, you know, we've seen iterations where there's been a difference in simulation, there's been a difference in arcade modes, there's been a difference in gameplay sections. Do you see the constant iteration being a problem for FIFA to become an esport?
Well, the gameplay does change. You know, you have different systems. They build the game on a new engine. I think, so I mentioned I started playing back in 2002. Since then till now, the game has changed drastically. So you have the way the player tackles, the way the player defends, the shooting structure, and everything really changes. So for me, personally, for me to be even the Indian champion for the 4 years that I was the Indian champion, each year was a new year for me. So the gameplay was completely different. And rightly, like you said, in esports, the games that we look at currently, like Dota and Counter-Strike, it's the same game for almost a decade. And whereas when it comes to FIFA, it's almost like a new game every year.
So then, which actually brings me to an interesting part of FIFA and the beast it's become in these years. FIFA has a section known as Ultimate Team. For those of you who are unaware, Ultimate Team lets you put together a somewhat random group of players to create your own customized team, which you can take to play against a CPU or against other players online. There's an emphasis on stuff like team chemistry, on who your manager is, on different skill sets, and it kind of plays like what FIFA would be if it was an RPG. So as someone who plays FIFA, who's played FIFA competitively, do you feel that the emphasis on Ultimate Team has taken away from what could be a pure competitive sport?
I don't feel so, because I think the FIFA Ultimate feature actually is something which is more of a strategy game. I think that doesn't really come into the esports part of it, because when we're talking about esports, it's purely just the game. You can't bring in the FIFA Ultimate Team into the esports category. So FIFA Ultimate Team is purely on an online mode basis, and people who really want to try and get their hands on managing a team and, you know, getting the right players, building the chemistry, and choosing the right formation, that's the feature that they really want to go for.
So essentially, as Reuben said, it's pretty much FIFA's attempt at trying to be, well, you know, the roadies slash reality show equivalent, except it's on your own console and no one has to see what happens behind the scenes. What do you think FIFA needs to be an esport that's not just, you know, fun to play? As you said that, yes, there's a learning curve year on year, but from a spectator standpoint, do you think there are any changes needed? Because, I mean, as someone who plays the game casually, I mean, it would be nice to see it, you know, up on a bigger platform.
Right. So when it comes to gameplay, I think each year EA does actually improve on the gameplay bit. If I have to compare the last couple of years, I felt it was more robotic. And if I have a look at a bit, the gameplay now, this year, FIFA 18, it's really customized. The movement, the way you control your player has changed a lot. So, you know, you're kind of actually getting into the real world soccer. Because today, if you watch the EPL, you know, I'm a Chelsea fan myself, and Chelsea can lose to West Brom, and they're sitting number 2, Chelsea sitting number 2 on the league, and West Brom's, I think, in the bottom half of the table, but they can still lose. And that's what's actually happening right now in FIFA. So I can lose, being India's number 1 player, not anymore, of course, but I could possibly lose to a beginner, because the game is so open right now, and I think that's the way the real soccer is at the moment.
But do you think that also messes up with game balance and possibly even messes up with any form of consistency? Because, I mean, I mean, while I do understand that, yes, in the real world, you do have these massive upsets, which tend to happen. Well, I mean, part of it has to do with Chelsea not being good. But, I mean, do you see that, do you see that sense of, that element of randomness being a deterrent, or do you see that helping getting more people into playing FIFA?
True. I think for me personally, being a professional player and practicing so much, it could actually be a disappointment, because I think when I was playing professionally, I used to play for about 10 hours a day. And back then, you know, I would make sure that I practiced so much that I would almost win each and every game by 5 goals. But today, when I play with my friends, sometimes over a couple of beers, I end up losing. And then they literally take a screenshot and they'll share it on Facebook, because we beat the Indian champion. And, you know, then I got to prove to them that the game's changed so much and so drastically over the decade that I don't think I'm number 1 anymore.
Yeah. I mean, but disappointments aside, I mean, actually, in addition to that kind of disappointment, so if you're the sort who even wants to get into FIFA right now, I mean, your options are kind of limited, simply because, well, I mean, right now we're in a situation where the only place you can buy the game officially is Amazon, and well, as you know, year on year, they always tend to delay the game, and so much so that while the game has seen, you know, like we said earlier in the show, 50,000 units, 60,000 units is a day 1 quantity. If we look at Amazon's own sale, it's less than 10,000 units year on year. So they bring in the game late, they don't bring in enough quantity, and that does put a damper on things, because what happens is whoever wants to play FIFA ends up having to buy it in grey or buying it digitally. Now this leads to another set of problems, because if you're buying it in grey, which a lot of people do, and which we've got emails from people asking, how does the DLC or Ultimate Team work? Well, because again, we're in a country where PlayStation is the number 1 platform. Sorry, PCMR, that's how it is. Right. The situation is such where if you buy a game which is of a region 3, you need to have a region 3 account. If you buy a game from a region 2, you need to have the region 2 account, which means that if you buy a US copy, you need a US account, UK copy, UK account, and an Asia copy, Asia account. And that obviously plays into the fact that your DLC might not work across the board. It also plays into the fact that your matchmaking will be different across the board. It also plays into the fact that you'll probably meet people of different skill ceiling, different level. And all of this impacts how people play FIFA in general. This impacts how you hone your skill set, because if you're the sort who wants to play this on a regular basis and come to terms with, you know, trying to understand the nuances and finer things, it becomes a bit of a concern. Because, I mean, let's be honest, the last thing you want to do is play FIFA online and meet someone like Reuben and get pantsed at the game. One thing I'd like to see from FIFA is a more unified method of accessing Ultimate Team's downloadable content and the matchmaking as well. What else do you want to see from FIFA so it could be better?
So I think this year FIFA came up with the story mode, and, you know, they're trying to get players to actually experience something different. But like we keep saying, FIFA, I believe, is purely an esport game. And I don't think the story mode was that much of a success. But it's good that they try something new. They're trying to get different players on board to actually get their hands on the game. And at this point of time, FIFA Ultimate Team is catching on. I'm not so sure whether it's caught on a lot in India, but I think you would be the right guy for the statistics.
Yeah, so what we do know is, at least with FIFA Ultimate Team, and this is something we've seen, at least I've seen with a lot of people I know with my friends, is that there are those who are willing to pay up to 20,000 rupees a year on FIFA Ultimate Team microtransactions. I'm sure, yes, those of you in the crowd who are on the, we hate loot boxes, we hate randomized microtransactions bandwagon, yeah, I'm sure you find that repulsive. And you know what? Here's the funny thing. When Battlefront 2 became the hot topic of discussion because of the way it managed loot boxes, those who play Ultimate Team just went up to me and said, for us, it's called Thursday. So there is, it's that kind of an audience that's pretty much used to how this is and how this works, and it's an audience that's pretty much silent about it because they're in their own ecosystem and they have very little to say outside of that. But I mean, coming back to the original topic, so you said that you mentioned that the story mode is something you'd like to see more of, less of. How would you see? What would you think would be really good for FIFA 19?
So I think the story mode is something that's new. I don't really have a huge following for it because, like I said, I prefer playing the actual game online, and I haven't really played much of the story mode. But just as a beginner, it's something different really. And personally, I also get my hand on FIFA Ultimate Team because I think it's more competitive. But like you say, it's not something that you can use in an esport because I think the person who's the best is the one that has the most amount of money.
Oh, so basically like real life football then, right?
Yeah,
I mean, considering Chelsea supporter and all, and how it is.
I guess so, but
yeah.
I mean, when you talk about Chelsea, we haven't spoken about Neymar moving to PSG for a ridiculous amount of money.
True that. So yeah, I mean, like Reuben said, it's already reached a point where the game, at least elements of the game, have become completely, well, for the lack of a better term, pay to win. And that does put a damper on a lot of things. And I agree completely where he's coming from. But one part I'd like to see change, or at least like to see added, is more emphasis on FUT draft, or the Ultimate Team draft mode, which lets you, it's basically a mode that lets you take on the CPU in randomized matches. And it's really cool. It works really well. It gives you that kind of a roguelike kind of approach to it, which I think really works. Squad battles is also pretty cool. I'd like to see them amp up those things, and hopefully, at least in terms of story mode, maybe fix things with the journey and actually make your decisions count. I know this isn't Mass Effect, but still it'll be nice to see my decisions count. One interesting that was discussed, and this came out a little late last year, was EA CEO Andrew Wilson was in conversation with Bloomberg and had said that there is the possibility where games like FIFA, games like Madden, could end up being subscription based, could end up being, well, instead of you paying the full price per year, you could end up just paying for the subscription and the game would update itself. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the main update that FIFA really has is the most important update rather is the squads, because at the end of the season or the mid-season, players keep moving clubs, and I think that would make sense if there was something like an update. But each year I think EA is really doing a task of changing the game, or rather building in more elements into the game, which really changes the platform and possibly the engine that it's running on. And like we discussed, hence some people are disappointed to know that it's not included in esports.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Plus, the other thing is, if EA do decide to take this, well, Netflix kind of approach, it then begs the question, does it make sense to pay 3,500, 4,500, whatever the cost is of FIFA on a yearly basis in your country? Because because the underlying logic and the underlying perception behind having a subscription-based service is you end up paying less. And I mean, that's how essentially, stuff like Hotstar ends up working here. So it would be interesting to see if that does happen. Personally, not looking forward to it, because if there's anything we've learned from publishers in the last couple of years, is that it's not that they just want your money, they want all of your money. And we've seen that with FIFA, we've seen that with Battlefront, where $60 isn't the price of the game, it's price of admission to a game, and you need to pay $20, $30, $40 more to get more out of it. So yeah, gaming's becoming expensive, and unless this makes it cheaper, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And yeah, now Aside from FIFA, there's another game that seems to have a higher visibility, at least in India, at least on ground at stores, is Pro Evolution Soccer. And I mean, time to spark that eternal flame war, PES versus FIFA. Why? What? How?
So I think PES versus FIFA has been a battle for a really long time. And back when I just started gaming, I know that Pro Evolution Soccer was a game that was available. But I think the most disappointing thing for Pro Evolution Soccer was that they didn't really have the licenses. So like I said, being a Chelsea fan, back then it was known as London FC.
What?
And yeah, it was known as London FC.
Okay then.
So, we didn't really feel, or rather all my friends and all the gamers didn't really feel they were playing with the team that they supported. So that kind of gave EA the advantage over PES. And all this while till now, I think the gameplay and the way EA develops the engines that they're working on and the detailing is definitely better in FIFA. That's my personal opinion because I've been playing FIFA all this while and PES as well. So I think I'd still vouch for FIFA.
I mean, as someone who ends up having to play both on a yearly basis for work purposes, I kind of oscillate between the two. This year, I felt that FIFA 18 was the better game simply because the presentation was on point and the core gameplay was there. It's where it should have been all this while, in my opinion. But then prior to that, it was all about PES for me at least because again, the gameplay was really good. They fixed the right things about it, and I mean, for the lack of a better term, it just felt right. The core gameplay just felt right all year. This year seems to be a reversal. Who knows what will happen when it comes to FIFA 19 versus PES 19? But I mean, as it stands, they seem to be on an even keel. We've seen PES bring in stuff like My Club, which I think are nice additions to have. I mean, it's going to be a while before Konami can compete with Ultimate Team, but it's nice to see that they're not going down without a fight. I mean, even though that PES is probably like one of the only games it makes, and no, Metal Gear Survive doesn't count as a game. So yeah, that's our take on PES versus FIFA. But now, aside from being one of the legends of FIFA, you also are a business development manager for Origin Marketing, and you guys make a ton of you guys bring in a ton of peripherals. So what's your take on games, looking at it from that side of the business? As not someone who's just playing, but someone who's looking at the business, looking at the numbers, looking at seeing how people are playing.
Right. So the gaming market has definitely expanded over the years. I think I joined Origin about 4 years ago, and purely because I was a gamer and I could bring in some experience in terms of how we could market the games and get it out there to the market. The hardware market has definitely grown a lot as well. Like we just launched the Snakebite PlayStation 4 gamepad, which is one of the only third-party gamepads available in the market, and you did the review for it. So yeah, definitely, I think your opinion would matter as well as a reviewer. So,
I mean, yeah, you can check out those opinions in the description. We're sure to have a link. There's a video as well. And long story short, yeah, if you're looking for something as a second player, I mean, if you're looking for a second controller, it's an affordable option. I mean, it has to do, a lot of it also has to do with the fact that, well, if you want a DualShock 4, you're paying close to 5,000. This is half the price. So, I mean, from a price standpoint, there's nothing wrong. Though I will grudge the fact that there's no 3.5mm jack. I mean, why are you trying to copy the iPhone, man? Like, dude, why are you doing this to me? And that and the fact that, yeah, it's wired. But then again, wired for for half the price is still okay. But I still am a little bummed out with the lack of a 3.5mm jack.
Right. So I think, like you just said, the controller is something that someone would buy as a secondary controller, because when you have a friend coming home, you wouldn't want to get your DualShock all oily and sweaty. So that's a good alternative for someone to pick up the Snakebite gamepad. And when someone's home, I guess most likely in situations you would have it on your loud system. You don't need the 3.5 jack then.
True, that's there. But I guess that's how probably Reuben won a lot of his games. He gave everyone else a second controller. But jokes aside, now one of the other brands you guys also manage is Catz. So can we expect new stuff from Catz coming soon? What's the situation with the stuff from them? For those of you who are unaware, Catz used to be one of the bigger accessories manufacturers for the better part of the last decade and a half. And they used to be super popular the world over. And they went bankrupt last year, and now they're coming back in some shape and form. And their products have been on the better side. And our man here should be able to tell us what we can expect from them for India.
Yeah, so we've been in discussion with Catz, and I think if you've been following the CES announcements, this year they announced that they're back in action, and they're going to be releasing a couple of new products as well, which they did announce at CES. We are currently in discussion, and we are optimistic that I think by this year, mid-year, we should be able to get Catz stock back in India.
Nice.
So we look forward to that.
So does that include fighting sticks?
We will. I think the fighting sticks was something that really did well for them internationally.
Yeah.
We haven't launched it in India yet, but it's only a matter of time that we can announce and let you know what the product lines are.
Yeah, because a fighting game community, FIFA gaming community, FGC, they kind of want to know what's up. So right. Yeah, so now moving on to the final part of the show. Reuben, what are you playing?
So at the moment, of course, I'm still playing FIFA, and thanks to my younger brother, I've also started playing Dota. And I know you may laugh, but from FIFA to Dota, that's two totally different games. I think I know just about 5 to 10 heroes in Dota itself. That's it.
But even then, 5 to 10 heroes takes a lot to master. It's considering the complexity of the game. I think it has, what, 120 plus heroes, if I'm not mistaken? Or at least a very large roster of heroes, if I remember that right. So 5 to 10 heroes is still a tremendous amount of time. How do you manage that? Master a hero, 5 to 10 of them?
I think before you get to being the best, you really have to lose. And like the gaming word is, you have to get owned in order for you to be the best. So I think the first couple of games I had way too many deaths. Then you have people shouting at you and calling you a noob, of course. But again, that's your stepping stone to success. People may call you a noob for a couple of days, but eventually you'll get good at it.
Interesting. And with that is the show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sending in your feedback. Keep in mind, we do read your emails, all of you, including the one guy who sent an email about how the camera work could be better. And trust me, we're going to be working on all of it. And your feedback is essentially what shapes the show. It's what shapes our editorial. So keep it coming, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know first when videos go live. Check out our weekly gaming podcast, which is called Transition, which is live every week in depth on all things gaming. And thank you for watching.